Jon Miller, Chris Williams. From the Channel Seed Studios, it's Miller and Williams. Presented by Wild Rose Casino and Hotel. 3 locations in Iowa. 3 times the fun. You'd rather be here. This is Iowa Everywhere.
Yeah, hold on, guys, real quick. I'm just turning on my DVR here. I'll rewatch the game while I do this podcast with Jon Miller.
You didn't get enough of it last night.
Welcome to the program. Special live Friday morning installment of Miller and Williams. We are presented, as always, by our friends at the Wild Rose Casinos in beautiful Clinton, Emmitsburg, and Jefferson. Emmitsburg's the only one I haven't been to yet. I need to get over to football powerhouse, Emmitsburg. When I was in high school, Emmitsburg won championship. They just won every year. It was like Emmitsburg and Harlan. They were always going to win the championship. So anyways, I love our friends at Wild Rose Casino. They've been a great supporter of mine for a really long time, and there's just a phenomenal group of people do a lot of good things for the state of Iowa. Been a good couple nights for the state of Iowa. Well, at least I felt like Wednesday night was the women's game, got all that national pub. The men's game was a bit of a dog, Jon Miller. And we'll talk about that. We'll break it all down for you, and we'll kick you guys off, hopefully, into your weekends with a smile. We are always in the Channel Seed Studios here on Iowa Everywhere. Jon Miller down in Kansas City. How are you today, my friend?
I'm fantastic. Just wondering why I wasn't invited on to do this after Iowa's women beat Iowa State, the wrestling team beat Iowa State.
I knew that was coming. So we had 2 guys named Chris after the women's game. And then
okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
fair.
then the wrestling thing is the same deal. We had a show previously scheduled. So now, will you tell the audience after you said that, so conspiracy theories don't fly, that I texted you early in the week and said, hey, can we do a Cyhawk reaction?
Right. Right. And here's the thing, though. And I said absolutely yes. I mean, anytime Chris sends out the bat signal, especially when I get Maddie Van Stats as a part of this, I mean, this is a rarity for me. Maddie Van Winkle, Maddie Van Stats. I mean, whatever. It works, right? Maddie Van Dub. And, it's like I just got called up to the A team. I'm going to take the shot, even though I knew full well that this conversation today would probably not be as enjoyable from an Iowa fan's perspective, because this is like my brother yesterday was, and we were talking, we talk about lines sometimes, and we don't usually even gamble on the games we talk about. And he's like, yeah, I got this free play. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to take Iowa on this and this. And my brother's not some sycophant. And I'm like, Jason, Iowa's going to get their ass kicked tonight. It's going to be horrible. Why would you do anything other than put it all on the clones? And he did not fare the way he wanted to, because Iowa got their ass kicked. And yeah, man, Iowa State, I kept thinking, like, is this team like 30 players deep? It felt like they kept bringing in the same guys off the bench, except for number 1, which I automatically there's a spot in my heart. How do you pronounce that guy's name? Pavletsky. Man, I got it the first try. He's got a little dog in him.
Freshman of the year in the whatever league Wofford's in last year. He averaged 17 a game at Wofford. Led the league in 3-point shooting. So yeah, just a low major guy who, trying to get a shot up at the high major level. And yeah, in fact, I just texted somebody in the Iowa State program, and I said the biggest difference I see in you guys in 3 weeks is him coming off the bench the way he has the last couple of games.
Well, yeah, and he was off the bench early. So this is a guy that clearly has a lot of trust. And, I made a tweet after the game last night, and I think there's some Iowa fans that are not happy about it because I complimented Iowa State. So far this year, Iowa has played 3 teams, and I failed to put 3 in there last night. I put 2. Iowa's played 3 teams that I could see making the Final Four. Obviously, March is mercurial. There sometimes can be better paths than others, depending on your draw, depending on the stylistic matchups that you have. But one thing always travels in March, and that's defense. And Iowa State is simply going to be an elite defensive team this year. and they're going to get better on defense and probably play even more connected than they have been playing thus far, which for teams I found myself last night going, I have got to find tickets to Iowa State in Lawrence again this year because
Dude, they don't play there.
Are you
This
serious?
new Big 12. Yeah, I swear to God. Okay, how about this? I have a better option for us. They don't. It sucks, dude. I hate this is why I hate conference realignment. That game, I mean, these old Big 8, they should still play twice. Like, find a way. Like, protect those. I know that that's not the business that Brett Yormark and all these people are in. But those two teams have played home and home that's a big deal. There's no schools in this league that care about basketball more than Iowa State and Kansas. They need to be playing. But
agreed.
Anyway.
I'm gut shot. That is ridiculous. I mean,
well, you want to go down to Manhattan on me? I'll get us tickets.
Are you
sit
going
behind the bench?
Are you going?
I'll go if you go. I'll come pick you up.
What's the date?
I don't know. We'll have to figure it out, but I'll get us.
Let's work that out. If I
ever been to Aggieville?
No, I've never been to Manhattan. And
do you guys have casinos down there?
Yes, I have I have a casino 5 minutes from my house.
I'm just saying, play a little blackjack, a couple guys playing some cards. Friday night.
If I don't have a conflict, I'm in. Totally. And I will wear Iowa State gear. You heard it here first. Breaking news on the Iowa Everywhere Network. If Chris Williams is going to call in some favors and get me a seat behind the Iowa State bench, I will wear
you're
Iowa
damn
State
right.
gear.
We're in those seats.
And I will cheer rabidly for the Cyclones, and it will be on television for all to see.
It's like the Seinfeld episode where Elaine wears the Orioles hat in the Yankees owner's box. And they ask her to take the hat off.
I can't believe I meant to send this link to you. I watched a 55-minute behind the scenes on the Seinfeld show topics.
Oh,
and they
really?
went in and they were interviewing Larry David. They were interviewing all the writers. So many things on that show. Like, that was real. Larry David was invited to sit. He got somebody's seats. They were in the owner of the Anaheim Ames's box, and it was back when the Cowboy, Gene Autry, was a big owner. They're sitting in the box, and he brought a buddy who's a Yankees fan. He had a Yankees hat on, and one of the guys came down and said, "Hey, can you get your friend to take that Yankees hat off? Gene doesn't want people wearing Yankees gear here." I'm going to send you that video. You're one of the people that can appreciate it. But yes, I will do that. I will do that.
Okay.
At least an Iowa State hat. I can't say I'm going to go like clone to the bone on the chest.
You're cloned out.
Iowa State hat and a cardinal colored shirt. I'm in. Yep,
Daddy Van Winks has pulled up the still image of Elaine with the Orioles hat on next to George Costanza. Yeah. No, we'll try and make that happen because the Bromwich is an amazing place to watch a game too. If you can stomach those Kansas State fans, it's a really great atmosphere. And I think Manhattan's one of the great underrated college towns too. In their whole little area there, it's really cool. Anyways, back to the game.
Hey, wait a second. It's March 9th. I'm sure I'm in.
Dude, I might just stay at your house for a week. Because then the Big 12 tournament's right after that.
Done.
Is your wife okay with that?
She will be.
I'm not a pedophile or anything.
Yeah, I'm going to tell her this is the guy that you were worried about the last time that might be a little pedo, but he's not. And he's even less of one now.
I got 2 daughters, man. I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything in that world, but like,
dude,
that was a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, we'll definitely work that out.
Speaking of stupid things to say, did you see? Again, we're gonna get back into this game. So this week, you're one of the few people that can relate. I'm looking around my house right now. My desk has just papers piled up. I've got 50 things around my house that I need to get done. Like this time of year, when football comes to an end and basketball starts, you get into this next week, which is finals week for the athletes, and it's just like, oh my God, it's the first time I can breathe since July, is how I feel right now.
Yeah. And then you think back longingly to like those last weeks of July, and like, man, what was I complaining about with nothing to write about? Man, this is brutal. Get me off this ride. I want out.
Yeah, that's the spot that I'm in right now. No, but
let me ask. I want to ask you something about that game last night.
Yeah.
So, do you think that my analysis of Iowa State potentially growing into a Final Four folks, when I say Final Four, I'm not saying I predict Iowa State to make the Final Four.
No, I know.
Got to see the bracket, but a team that has the fingerprints and the archetype of a potential Final Four team, at least Final Eight, because I think Iowa State's offense is going to continue to get better. I think Iowa State is probably a shooter or two. I think Iowa State's going to have nights where they can't hit the three, and it'll cost them. But that's over the course of a season. Their defense, I think, helps them make up for that. The free throw shooting could be an issue as well. But what do you think? What do you see Iowa State's weaknesses as right now? And then we'll talk about Iowa's as well and strengths. Do you think would you agree or disagree with my belief that that Iowa State team, I think, has the fingerprints to get to be a Final Four caliber type team?
I think they have the potential to be that, mainly because I think Tamin Lipsey is probably the most underrated guard in America. He wasn't even on the Kuzi top 30 list to start the year. Like he's a top 15 point guard. I mean, the guy just does everything, makes winning plays. The Gilbert kid who had 25 last night has been pretty inconsistent. He's always had the talent, but you have a lot of guys with Iowa State, John, that are either freshmen or they are coming up a level. So their transfers now aren't Big Ten guys like they've had in the past. And we'll see. Do not take this, if you're an Iowa fan, I'm just being brutally honest with what I saw last night. I don't know how Iowa State's post play, they combined to go 14 of 17 last night. Iowa State, what did they have points in the paint? It was an absurd number.
46. It was 30-2 at halftime.
I don't think that is sustainable in the Big 12. And you can read into what I think about Iowa's bigs by that comment.
Well, they're not good.
I don't like to use the term soft because that, to me, in political discourse, is like using the word woke. It's well, what does that mean? It's just you're trying to be. But Iowa's bigs did not want anything to do with that physicality last night. And here's a good thing for Iowa State. To be honest, John, their best their best interior defender didn't play. He's out. He'll be back in January. His name's Hassan Ward. He's their best rim protector. He wasn't even out there last night. So getting him back in the Big 12 will help. Last night, they just feasted on Iowa's bigs early. And when you're playing Big 12 teams, last night looked really easy to me. So, it was a great win. I agree with everything you're saying. The other thing is this Momcilovic, who only had 8 last night, he's their best shooter. And he was 3 of 10. So you're going to get him on much, much better nights. I think they had the potential to do everything you said. I said on Two Guys Named Chris earlier this week, at the beginning of the year, my hope for Iowa State was to be a 3 to 5 seed. I said I had backed it up to be a 5 to 7 seed. And I don't know if I would change my mind on that based on last night, because I was not impressed at all with Iowa. I think I have a lot of thoughts on Iowa. I haven't been able to talk about them. I think there's some chess moves Fran can make, because I think there's some really nice young talent on that team. But I just don't know how much I'm going to read into how that game translates to Iowa State when they're playing Kansas and in Houston. These teams that are just going to come try and beat the crap out of you.
Right. And Iowa beat Iowa State last year. What was it, by 20 or whatever? You were out in Vegas and saw that. Iowa was a one and doneer in the NCAA, which again, as I've talked about before, and I still feel this way, my enjoyment of college basketball, it culminates with the greatest sporting event on the planet in March Madness. But while we also say that college basketball is all about March relative to how they crown championships, college basketball is also so much about the entertainment of the journey along the way, which is basically how life is. I mean, when we look back on memories, that's the journey. I'm not the end game of life is death. We die. So I'm not like, can't wait to get to the end. I'm enjoying the journey. And that's how I view college basketball, maybe because it gets us through the death of winter.
Yeah.
But and this Iowa basketball team, the last 4 years, they've had a National Player of the Year candidate on their roster for 4 consecutive years. And Luka won it once, maybe should have won it twice.
He probably would have.
In Luka, Keegan, and
COVID.
Chris.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they gave it to that Dayton player his junior year, which I think.
Yeah. Obi Toppin.
Yeah, there you go.
Obi Toppin.
Yeah, Toppin. So they don't have that this year. Now, I've not become spoiled and naive to think that the Iowa men's basketball team is all of a sudden just going to have a National Player of the Year candidate every single year. But this team is I'm struggling to find somebody that Iowa can ride when they need points. Now, Peyton Sandford, we all know, can get hot and he can go off, and I love watching him play. But his position, and he's not really an off the dribble guy unless he's got kind of a clunky 4 on him. He's basically entirely dependent on, is his 3 ball going in, and then he can carry a team. And we saw Jordan Bohannon do it. We've all watched college basketball and seen those things happen. But that's, to me, guys that can put a team on their back and bust a slump and help them get over rough spots in games are not typically 3 reliant players. They're the rarity in this sport, like a Luka Garza or the big galoot from Purdue. Those guys are rarities now. It's these guys like a Keegan Murray, the 3-and-D guys in the NBA, the stretch 4s, the guys that are 6'6" to 6'9", that have off the dribble, take it to the rim abilities, mid-range pull-up pops, 3 abilities. Those are the guys that can put you in their back. And I always had those. They don't have that right now. And like you just said, to me, I would play more Brock Harding and I would play more Owen Freeman, because those 2 guys, that actually gets me interested to tune and watch, because this is a rebuilding year for Iowa.
Absolutely.
It just is. And I'm not going to get pissed. My tweet last night I thought was measured voice. I'm not going to get mad at this. This is a rebuilding year, and since it is, start playing for the future.
Well, a lot to talk about with that. Real quick, I want to thank my CW pod sponsor, Steeple Ridge Bourbon. I didn't have a CW pod this week. I'm going to do a makeup one with bowl games coming up. Guess what I'm going to do coming up on the CW pod? I'm trying to get in touch. Did you know the world champion Mario Kart player lives here in Iowa?
No.
Yeah, freaking awesome. Trying to get her lined up.
World champion Tecmo Super Bowl player used to live in Iowa.
Now he resides down in Kansas City. But anyways, no, go out and get yourself a bottle. This is a great Christmas gift for somebody. It is a phenomenal looking bottle too. You can always spot Pat's handiwork with the penny right there. He's a great supporter of mine. I love the Hoffman family out there in beautiful Erling, Iowa. They are great people, and they make an incredible bourbon. It is just to die for. Give them a shout out today. So we need to talk about Patrick McCaffrey, and we need to do it in a sensitive way because he's been through a lot. Really a 0 out there last night, John. 17 minutes, 0 points. He was 0 of 3 with 1 rebound. Like, to me, the obvious move is to put Freeman in there more for him, which it seems like Fran is kind of doing. Let's start right there. What do you think of that? Like, because it's he looked like he was physically out there, but I just don't. He just wasn't engaged in the game. It was just, I got the ball, I'm gonna pass. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm talking about with Patrick?
I do.
How do you handle that?
I do. And I started in the tweet that I wrote last night. I had like about 3 sentences about Patrick and a couple other players. I'm like, you know what? Just don't do that tonight. There'll be time to talk about it. And I'm going to say this about Patrick. In transition, he is a great asset to have if you're able to get out, run, break, be in transition a lot. He's a great transition player. In half-court sets, he is an absolute liability, has been for the entirety of his career, but I don't blame him for his dad continuing to put him in spots that he's just not good at. He doesn't have a consistent mid-range or outside shot. His points come on kind of weird, funky, old man at the Y that has a little more athleticism than most guys at the Y sorts of ways that just aren't repeatable. They're just kind of funky ad libs. He gets himself caught in the air. One of the first things I learned in junior high is don't jump with the ball in your hand unless you know what you're going to do before you jump. Pat, his whole career, gets up in the air, doesn't know what he's going to do. And again, I don't see this as ripping apart Pat. He has got talent. It's just in half-court sets, and teams are always trying to slow Iowa's breakdown and gunk it up. Pat's a liability. And I do think, like you said, credit to Fran, he kind of saw that, went away with it. But the problem is it's still his kid. He's still going to get his kid minutes in half-court sets that I think is a detriment to this team. This is year 4 of it. It hasn't changed. It's not going to change. So I agree with you. I would, Pat's minutes would go down if it was me.
I'm going to start with the negative for Iowa, and then I'll get into the more positive thoughts that I have on this team. Tony Perkins just isn't taking the step. To me, I thought that was the key for Iowa this year. I did this. If you want to go back and listen to it, I did a preseason podcast on Iowa basketball with Jess Settles, and we talked about this. We thought that he had to be he's always been an inconsistent guy to being the man. And we saw that it was the Indiana game last year, John, where he just kind of took over towards the end. And it's like, I thought if Iowa would be an NCAA tournament team and achieve, it's hit its ceiling, that it would be Perkins would have to be the guy to hit the gas. And I'm just not seeing it. He just looks like the same guy. It doesn't look like he's taken that step to me.
No, I mean 22 minutes. And again, last night's box score, the game was over.
Last night will be skewed.
Yeah, the game was over at the half. He looks like a guy that absolutely knows what you're saying is true. For this team to reach its peak, he has to fill that role. And he looks like the guy that knows that too well, and he's pressing, and he's just trying too hard to be that guy. I like his game. The elements of his game, Iowa hasn't had very many of those through the years. With guys that can take it to the rim and finish the way that he is athletically. He just can't get there on a consistent basis. And that's, I'm sure it's frustrating for him. It's frustrating as a fan to know that he has that ability and just can't consistently do it. It's like I get a little frustrated with Desante Bowen. Desante Bowen, he needs somebody to tell him, dude, you are that guy that gets to the rim when he wants to and can finish. But you transition into this, what was Superman? Clark Kent and Superman. Clark Kent, when he drives the basket, is looking to dish off and drop the dime and not take it to the rack. Or sometimes drive to the rim and dribble all the way underneath the rim and out the baseline and reset the piece. He does that a lot. And I'm like, what are you doing? Alpha, go to the rim, draw a foul, make things happen. You have abilities that other people in this team don't have, but he doesn't have that killer mindset. And that's frustrating because he can get to the rim. So Iowa has 2 players right there that they normally don't have that can get to the rim and I think finish or draw fouls. And it's not there. So Iowa finds itself once again a guard or 2 short for any type of March impact. They, as you mentioned, soft in the paint. I mean, Ben Krikke, he's a nice piece. I would have loved to have a Ben Krikke when Luka Garza was there.
Yeah, he's fine, but he can't be your guy. That's the problem with him. No, he's a fine player.
He's the second act in a high low game. Can you imagine him on the free throw line elbow in kind of a triangle play with Luka on the opposite box and Cricky on the elbow, he'd pick your poison because he'll make that shot. He's been making it all the time.
All day.
And then he can drop down with Luka flashing. Oh my gosh. That's what Cricky is. Cricky is not, hey, he's not the media guide cover. He's inside the first page of the media guide, but on this team, he's the media guide cover. And I think Iowa's going to be really hard pressed to make it to the tournament. It is a rebuilding year for them.
Yeah, so my positives, you touched on Bowen. Like, to me, he has that talent. That's exactly what I was going to say. He looks the part to me especially when I watched him up close last night. Like he's fast. You're right. He can get there 7 of 7 from the free throw line. Harding, I'm still out there on. You guys seem higher on him than I do, but I don't know as much about him. He's raw. Like, he just needs to play more, and we'll see more as far as that goes. I feel like Peyton Sandfort obviously is your guy. Like, that's your wing. Here's my question is, and this is where I would be a little bit afraid if I'm an Iowa fan, because didn't Bowen come in? I mean, he wasn't like a McDonald's All-American or anything, but he was pretty highly regarded out of high school.
They got him out of the Northeast. It wasn't like a foregone conclusion. So from Iowa perspective, right?
Yeah. So I guess my question to you is, does he just not see guards well? I'm talking about Fran and this coaching staff. Or do they just simply not develop them? Because Perkins is really not much different than he was. My question is with Bowen, because I think Bowen has the talent. I think he has the ability to be an all Big Ten type guy when he's a senior. What faith do you have that they'll develop him to be that, I guess, is because this is just the whole McCaffrey era. Like, it's the same conversation. Elite wings, you have some elite bigs. They're usually pretty deep teams, but you don't have the guards to win in March. And when I look at this roster, I see the exact same thing. I look down the road, I'm like, man, Harding and Bowen can both be pretty good. But what faith? Because I know Freeman is going to be an all Big Ten guy. I'm telling you that right now. He's sick.
Yep.
He's really, really good. Sandfort, same way. He has that type of potential. But when I look at these guards, it's like, what faith do we have that Fran can develop them to be that part where, man, you can make a Sweet 16 with this core?
So I would say that since 1988, okay, when BJ and Roy were in Iowa's backcourt, you could say Roy was on the wing. Iowa has rarely had guards that can take them deep in a March run. They just haven't. This is a Tom Davis issue. This is a Steve Alford issue. This is certainly a Todd Licklider issue, and it also has been a
really
Fran
good
issue.
point on Davis, because I watched those teams as a kid growing up, and
Andre Woolridge,
and then Dean Oliver comes in with
wasn't the most consistent at finishing at the rim. Mike Gazelle could get to the rim, couldn't finish at the rim.
Gazelle's not in that.
Dev Marble was absolutely a great development story by this coaching staff.
Yep.
But I think it's more of the rarity. The thing is, Fran tries to get guards. He tries to get really good guards. Iowa is just a perpetual bridesmaid on the recruiting trail as it relates to these guys. Now, a lot of people have told me that, Fran's just such a stickler to the rules and all this and that, and he chose not to get involved in the, paying players before it was legal. Now that it is legal, it just feels like Iowa men's basketball is not in that game either. Maybe they just don't have the deep pockets of some of these other programs. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't have any other answer for it.
I'm not asking you to defend it. I find it hard to believe that Iowa, which is a pretty good NIL situation from what I understand, like, can't be in that game in basketball. But I don't know.
Well, okay. Let me rephrase that, because I don't have any knowledge of the inner workings of Iowa's NIL. I'm just saying, from the outside looking in,
yeah, I get you.
It looks like Iowa's being outbid, buddy. Yeah, by a lot.
Well, it doesn't help either. To me, Fran has a little bit of Dabo Sweeney going on too. It's like every public comment, you're just bitching about the system. And we all know the system sucks, but it comes off. I don't think Fran's anti these guys getting paid. I don't. He said he's not. But it comes off negatively, and you can get a bad rap with that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like a kid's like, why do I want to go play for someone that doesn't think I should be paid, even though they're offering me this money? I get it. There's just some other things with Iowa's roster building through the Fran era and really through all these eras. It's like, seriously, I don't really want to get into it yet. But anyway, so this is a rebuilding year, and that's okay. That's okay. I think
Can
as
I give
long
you a
as
positive?
you realize –
Real positive for you. I don't think the Big Ten's very good.
No, I
think it's a down year for that. I think it's a down year for that league. So, I mean, if you're going to rebuild, this might be a decent year to do it because you are like this Iowa roster is not full of babies. Like there are some experienced guys here who have been through the grind. Like if you're going to rebuild, this may not be a bad year to do it, is what I'm saying.
No, that's a really good point because it might be, hey, you might win 18, 19 games in a year. Otherwise, you might have only won 14 or 15. And that's good. I think that's what they did. And this is Iowa's worst start since 17, 18. And I think that team was like a 14-win team that year. So you've got a real good point. So, yeah, we'll see. We want it to be entertaining. For Iowa fans, you've also got the women's basketball team that I think is going to have an entertaining year, although – I kind of see the women's team playing out the way that I was concerned about all summer long, and that is you're just not going to replace Monica Cesano, the bigs that Iowa has. Monica Cesano is the third leading scorer in Iowa women's basketball history that nobody even thinks about. It's Caitlin Clark, it's Megan Gustafson, and it's Monica Cesano. And Monica Cesano even shot a higher floor percentage than Megan Gustafson did. And I think ultimately this Iowa basketball team in the tournament could get bounced out before the round of Sweet 16, but it's going to be so much fun to watch the regular season. So we have that. Iowa's wrestling team this is definitely a rebuilding year for them. But you know what? There's still enough entertainment to get us through the winter. Hey, by the way, Omaha Blue, spin me up on this because here's the thing. I get that there's guys that are developmental players. I get that. But usually you don't see that for McDonald's All-Americans and 5-star recruits that like they don't even play a minute. Is he hurt? What's going on?
No, he's not hurt. I'll give you it's funny because even after a 25-point win over your rival, this was the question I was getting from everybody last night. And
Iowa fans are curious because we're just tuning in and we don't see Omaha.
He's not hurt. Frankly, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. If you've watched him play this year, he's been really bad. Like he played 6 minutes against DePaul. DePaul outscored him 21-4 during that time. Okay.
Oh.
It's easy
to get outscored 21-4 when you're the only player on the court. Oh, I'm assuming there were 4 other guys out there too.
Yeah, but if you watched it,
Omaha.
So here's the good news. That he is completely engaged. I was with the team down in Florida, right? And he's the best. He might be the best kid on the team. Like he's phenomenal. He is not your prototypical McDonald's All-American living the cushy. Like he is completely locked in, and he knows that he's got a lot of development to do. There's a couple things at play here. One, when you look at their roster, so he's not a big, but he's kind of being asked to be one. And Trey King, Robert Jones, and Hassan Ward, who didn't play last night, are all ahead of him. Those guys are all 23, 24 years old. So it's just hard in modern-day college basketball for an 18-year-old. I think if Omaha was a guard, he'd have a lot better time seeing the court. But the fact of the matter is he's not there right now, man. And they'll get him there, but like, what's your job as the coach to play the McDonald's All-American or to win? And I think it'll be fun to see the next 3 weeks. They've got 4 bye games coming up, and I think we'll see a lot more of Omaha Blue. But I think they were almost in a – here's the like everybody's like, oh, my God, is he going to transfer? Is he upset? No, it's really not. I swear to God, from what I understand, it is none of that. He's incredibly happy. He's the first guy in the gym every single day, works his ass off. It's a great relationship. He's just not there yet. And hopefully Jeff in Texas makes a good point. Waukee is different than the Big 12. And the thing is, John, like if you do look at these McDonald's All-Americans, it's a little bit like football, right? Like the farther away you get from the center, faster chance you have to play early. And he's just not at the level to play against these high major bigs right now. He's just not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my main man, Robert Jones, is not leaving that spot. I mean, he's my favorite Cyclone.
He's one of my favorite of all time. I'm serious.
Saw him in person last year in Lawrence, and I was like, this is a dude I like a lot. I mean, he was like did he even play against Iowa? He didn't last year, did he?
Yeah, he did. He was joking about it last night about how he wanted to forget that game.
Yeah, because he was a no-show apparently in the game. But
dude,
yeah, man.
Do you remember him the last 2 years? Like his hands were bricks. Like he couldn't even. He's the worst free throw shooter I've ever seen at Iowa State, but he just plays so freaking hard. And I promise you, like this, I don't know everything about Iowa State. I know this. He is the rock of that team.
Yeah.
In the locker room.
I like him a lot.
I know him pretty well. I've gotten to know him over the last 3 years. He is a fascinating human. He drives a minivan around campus. How badass is that? He drives his mom's minivan around campus. He's the coolest dude. That. Did you hear his quote last night? They asked him about, hey, what'd you think about beating your rival the last time you play him? And he goes, it was delightful. That was his reaction. He's just hilarious. He's just a cool kid. He's a cool kid.
I like him a lot.
You asked me, like, what do you think? That's where I just don't know. Like, I've seen Robert Jones, and I feel like I know his game quite well. He is so much better than he was, and I know how hard he worked in the offseason, but he ain't going 6 for 6 against Houston. Like, this is not happening. That's where it doesn't translate. And they were just physically beating the shit out of those Iowa bigs early in that game, and you knew that was their game plan. The first time down the floor when Trey King backed in, I don't know if it was Cricky or whoever was on him. Like that was clear that's what Iowa State was going to do.
For sure. And I saw that too. And I'm like, oh, that's a play that you go back to until they stop it. And, Iowa State was they were attacking. They were the aggressor early. There's no arena that coming through my television surround sound that sounds like Iowa State sounds. There's no other arena that sounds the way Hilton sounds. And maybe also it's against Iowa. There's just that extra FU in the sound coming through.
Yeah,
it is palpably different than anything. I mean, whether I watch Duke, North Carolina, doesn't matter. There's nothing that sounds like Hilton Coliseum coming through my surround sound. Nothing like
it was impressive last night. The students like camped out all night after the women's game, and they actually let the students in an hour earlier than normal because I think it was just like it's cold, like they're all here, just let them in. It'll help our not clog it when the other fans show up, so they let them in. The student section was 100% full, like an hour and 45 minutes before the game. Like if you weren't there, you weren't getting a seat. It was wild.
That's great. That's great.
And that's where I always like in my mind, like where do you want Iowa State basketball to be? Like, sure, you want to win you want to go to Final Fours, do all this stuff. I want Iowa State basketball. Like my dream for this program under Otts in the next 10 years is to eventually be more like Kansas, right? Where it's a Sunday evening against Prairie View A&M, and that place is completely full with students. Like no matter, the students are really good. I'm not killing them. Like they show up, but those games, it'll be, it's a Sunday afternoon, 50% full, 60% full, and they're into
sure,
it.
Dude, that's the way it is everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think Iowa State basketball fans can do that. I think that with consistent winning, I mean, they're going to NCAA tournaments, but just about every year. Now you've got this really likable coach that I think will be here for the next 15 years. And that's like where I want Iowa State to get, and like whatever with the success. But it always just blows me away when I go to Lawrence and the kids are, they've got a little different setup, but they're sitting out there like they're not camping in tents like they do at Iowa State, but they're studying. They're all in sleeping bags and stuff like that. And they do that when Long Beach State's coming to town. It doesn't have to be Iowa or Houston or whatever. And that again, that's where I want the Cyclones to get to.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kansas is a pretty special place.
Yeah, I'm shooting pretty high.
And that's okay, because Hilton Coliseum is a special place too. It's just there's tiers. There's Duke and there's Kansas.
Yeah.
And then there's space. I think Iowa State's right there on that next tier. But man, there is just nothing I've ever seen like Allen Fieldhouse. Grace was texting me yesterday that there's kids that are out there camping out right now. I think Missouri may be coming to town, but that's a big one if that's true.
Allen Fieldhouse is the only thing I can compare it to that I've lived through was going to watch Nebraska play football in the 90s, Memorial Stadium.
Right.
Like just electric, where you can't explain it, where the entire crowd is on the exact same page. We always make fun of ourselves at Iowa State. Nobody's worse at like striping an arena than Iowa State fans. Like to get all these like farmers and veterinarians on the same page, like we're not like, and Iowa State has like 50 different colors, right? So it's really hard to get them all to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, but like what blows me away about Kansas, it doesn't matter if you have blue hair in the front row or if you're little Gracie Miller, everybody's on the same page for the 30 minutes leading up to tip off. And it's
sure.
unlike anything you'll see anywhere else. Yeah, Nebraska football used to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's no longer. By the way, make sure that you reach out to your friend Steve and make sure that he watches this one, because he came really hard last time.
Steve,
as you predicted he would.
Oh yeah.
He's probably thinking I'm just making all these things up to be nice.
He thinks you're setting it up to then just shit all over Iowa State. So Steve, as I predicted last week, that Steve would not be a fan. He would call out Jon Miller for the troll job. Steve texted me right away. This is how great Steve is. I love him to death. Last night, so Steve throws like tailgates where you would love him, man. He pays for it all. He pays for all of it, and he throws tailgates for just whoever wants to show up, and then he'll donate all of like he'll have a free will donation thing. He donates it all to charities. Like, he's unbelievable. And he waited in the parking lot to give me a cold brew coffee to drink on the way home last night because he knew it would be a late night, is what he said. Yeah, great.
That's awesome. That's a good dude. Yep. Yeah, I would like Steve. And Steve, I'm telling you right now, you would like me. You would. We would have a fun time together.
I think it's a love affair between you two, to be honest with you. Hold on. Elise wants to be on the camera. Elise has been hounding me to be on. You say hi to Uncle John?
Well, hey, Elise. How are you? Man.
Friday's home with Dad, man.
Yeah, I used to do hair just like yours, little pigtails and ponytails. Did your daddy do your hair sometimes?
She can't actually hear you because I have the headphones in. But
no, that makes this really embarrassing. Not really.
Fridays with Dad, man. It's one of our deals now, so it's cool.
Those are good.
Well, thanks for doing this, man. I know you got a lot going on. You're the old propane business.
I got some propane to get back to. I got the blogs don't write themselves.
Last thing. Do you have our trip to the Skinwalker Ranch booked?
As you know, I sent you a text last night that was from one of the folks at Skinwalker. That was a hunting expedition. Apparently, they were trying to rid. The wolves were getting a little feisty, but yeah, I said, man, I want to sit down with you and this person that you know real well. And he's like, yeah, we can go. And I just want to sit down with Jim and around a fire. I don't care if it's at Skinwalker or anywhere. I want to just sit around, listen to stories.
I want to go to a hunt. We got to go on a hunt. Not not an animal hunt. Like, no, there's paranormal activity on that ranch.
There is. I want to stay away from the radiation areas and the geomagnetic things. I just really not. I don't. You're
as soft as Iowa's interior defense.
No. I just have gotten to the point. I'm 52 years old. If I live to be like 90, it's going to be like a super fun ride the rest of the way, and I don't want to screw that up and fall down a well where there's radioactive aliens waiting to gobble me up.
That's fair.
Allegedly.
That's fair.
I don't know.
Miller and Williams every week, presented by our friends at Wild Rose Casinos. Thanks, John. Have a good weekend.
Get to work on getting
Gracie,
those.
Go Jayhawks.
All right,
well, at least a little bit under the weather today. We got snot in our hair. One of those
tangle monsters there. This is going to be a good 15, 20 minutes. Get those tangles out.
It's going to be brutal.
Get the ponytail going. Then take pictures and send it out to everyone and say, look what dad has done. When moms never do that. So,
yeah, a little under the weather today. Good napping day in the afternoon, right, Elise? Yeah. All right. He's John Miller. My name is Chris Williams. We will be back next week.